Well, I guess I can start. Yes.
Okay.
I'm starting?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Before we start our lecture story, I think we should introduce ourselves. We are a 5-man team, but it's just us three today because we are the ones who coded and developed the engine. My name is Alex, there is Sergey and Daniel. Now, one day we decided to make a game in C++, just out of the blue. We want a game. We had some basic experience writing gameplay demos, no menus, Nexon sound, just basic gameplay features, nothing else. And therefore we decided to make everything right and make a complete game with GUI, publishing, stuff like that. We immediately started writing lots of documentation, lots of mock-ups, prototypes, things like that. The problem was that all of that was done about the game, as in a monolithic piece of code. It was not flexible, it was not scalable, nothing. Then we again decided to make everything right and write an engine. Now, the title might be a bit misleading. As you probably know, naming is difficult for developers. We have a library, which is a set of multimedia functions which are not quite related to each other, they just do something you want. There are frameworks which provide some structure to your code that they give you specialized objects, things like that. And then there is everything else, just engines. There are normal engines like Unity and Unreal, which are self-sufficient and well-developed. You all probably have experience working with them. There are in-house engines, which are usually a bit more crude, that you also have low-level instruments. They're not as convenient, but they work as intended. But then there is a term in-place engine, which is kind of a high-level framework. It provides some resemblance of tools. It can work with external data types and things like that. So we have an in-place engine. We embed it into the code and work with it just as is. Now, we decided not to use traditional game object architecture. You probably know it, that there is an object and it contains everything. And decided to go with trendier and lesser known, at least for us, entity component system, or entity component system. Remember the part about the name, it's difficult. Its structure is a bit more difficult, but it's much more flexible and convenient. It allows for really interesting arrangements. And it can have the problems of game object engines like this, when you have a dependency from two different items that depend on the single class. So no problem. Now, our engine architecture is rather simple and easy to understand, but it might be a bit confusing for the first time. We had a lot of trouble coming up with it, and one day it just clicked and fell into place. The most important part is the systems. They do all the hard work, like rendering, physics, calculating collisions, stuff like that. Each system has components, which are just pieces of data. They are stored however the system wants them to be stored. They can be packed, they can be sparsely populated. It depends on the system and how efficient we want it to be. We can communicate with the systems using entities, which are simply numerical identifiers. Just numbers, nothing else. The lifecycle of entities and systems are handled by their respective entity manager and system manager. They create them, they destroy them, update them, and do everything else they do. Next up, we have resource managers, which store resources in a somewhat similar way to systems, but while systems do actual gameplay work, they You can see the results. Resource managers just stay behind the scenes and do everything by themselves. We also have states, which are very, very specialized objects that either deal with loading entities from outside, initializing systems, or processing some code that lies outside of the whole architecture. For example, we had a state which simply wrote a single line to the screen, just so we could debug or use it for something else. Now, with the technical stuff out of the way.
I think you forgot about the group manager.
Yes, it's a late addition. So we also have a group manager, which allows us to attach arbitrary strings to different entities. Think Unity tags or Unreal's also tags, I think. I don't know. Yeah. Now, with the technical stuff out of the way, we can talk about the experience that we got developing the engine and actually using it. So we made the bare bones. It could draw. We could move a square around, and we could handle a lot of different images, just animations on the screen at the same time. So we decided to actually do something with this engine. And it just so happened that we had a global game jam just around the corner. So we decided, yeah, good way to test. Just make a game and yeah, everything will be fine. Nothing bad can happen. Well, everything bad happened. Halfway through making the game, we found out that our engine is extremely buggy. And we had to fix all the bugs, to add all the missing features we did not consider. It turned out well in the end. We did submit our game, and it was kind of fun. Not just completely fun, but close enough. What did we learn from making the engine, the game, and everything in between? So first of all, organization is important. We had a Kanban board for organization, but we did not have any organizational process. We simply used the board to store things that we needed to do, that we've done already, what we're planning, and things like that. We could go on for weeks just coding the engine every day, fixing bugs, testing it with some simple tests, and then and then we could go on without doing anything for months. It's obviously not good for the quality of your product. Second, infrastructure is important. During the planning, we laid out all the gameplay features. We could draw to the screen, we had decent animation systems, everything else. Yet we did not have any menus, we still don't have a UI in place, we had no sound, nothing. So when we made the game, just that halfway through game jam, we had a really confusing game with no text explaining what to do, and it was a bit scarily silent, no sound, nothing, just things moving around the screen with no progress. And you might guess it wasn't really fun or interesting. Now, the last thing we learned is best summed up by a hopefully well-known quote. Give a man a game engine and he delivers a game. Teach a man to make an engine and he never delivers anything. If you want to make a game, well, make a game. Don't think about all the engine magic that is at bay. You really need to learn how it works only if you want to know how it works. If you want to make your own engine, which is kind of obvious. It might be helpful. I hate this pen. It might be helpful in the future since it's a really nice thing to put on your engineering resume, but it will in no way help you to make your game. So, what can I say? Go out there and good luck with making your games, your dream games that you want. Any questions?
How you started? Like, you read some books or maybe articles?
You mean how did we come up with the idea of making an engine?
Yeah, but what helped you to start?
Well, as I said, one day we decided to make a game out of the blue. And we wanted to make a proper game just to know how it's done. So people make games all the time. How do they do it? Just what is the correct way? What is the most efficient professional way? we started making documentation and ended up deciding that it would be nice to make a complete engine for our game. Over time it evolved that let's make a more general engine which could be used to make any game. And we proved that it can make any game by actually making a game with it.
So the first idea was actually to make a game.
Yes, we talked about it.
And
Do you have any predefined systems?
Hmm?
Do you have any predefined systems, or the user should create all them by himself?
Yes. As I said, it is an in-place engine, and it is intended that you included it, all of it. But we do have some predefined systems. There is rendering, there is a basic velocity system, and a somewhat crude, I would think, well, it's really difficult to put it, a basic collision system. If you need to add any gameplay elements, you simply write a system. But it might be an overkill for loads of objects. If you only use it for one or two objects.
well, if it's an overkill to make a system, then what's the other way?
It's an overkill to make a system for a single
Object.
gameplay element.
Yeah, and
For example,
how do you approach?
rendering, sorry. Rendering is always needed, therefore it's done as a system. But for example, if you have a single item like, say, a lift in a game, a single lift in the whole game, it would not make sense to write a system for it. Systems are intended as bulk processing objects.
And where do you put that lift in this case? Or where do you put the lift processing system?
Input?
You've said that we have
This
only
was
one lift.
in the state. You can put it in the state.
Oh, in the state. And can you elaborate more about what is the state and?
A state is essentially an object that controls the flow of the game. You can put anything in it, but after we made the game and used it, we decided that it's best to simply put things that work outside the system of systems, that don't need a system, that are just fire and forget, or are not that important to store, to process, just very simple stuff. They are very specialized objects intended to control the flow of the game.
If I may add, well, there are simple examples of the state, we planned, such as think about the pause state, the inventory state, the menu state, the gameplay state. It's like the central state of our engine. So the state is, you can also think about it as a scenario of your game. So like a main menu is a scenario. Like you have a menu. I can give analogy about Godot state, scenes, sorry. If somebody used Godot, Godot engine, you may have heard about the scenes. Well, states are in some way similar to the scenes.
Well, not really. Our things are a bit more utility based.
It really depends on how you use them. So
You can use it for a variety of different things, basically. Just
And how's it implemented these states? I'm really interested. Like, is it a like a large class of functionality, or
not really, just
can you make a show or just explain an example? Like, for example, how do we approach like a main menu state, for example?
yeah.
Maybe I will try to explain. So there is a class hierarchy starting at an abstract state, which then resolves into a concrete scenarios, as my friend said. So what does the state do? It defines the preloading phase. So when it starts, it may load the objects, load the level, and the stuff that is needed for the scenario. Then it has the main loop, in which it usually defines what is happening in the level. So it's if it's not only in the game level but in menu, how the button clicks are handled and so on. Then it defines practically in this main loop, it defines the rule for transition to other states. And it also defines the cleanup phase. So when the state ends, it is cleaned up and all objects loaded, all levels loaded are deallocated.
Thanks. And I also have a question about the rendering phase. Like, how do you approach one? Like, which shading language do you use? Which target platforms do you plan to release? Like this kind of stuff, or maybe some hardware compression, like something like this.
Right now,
If I may? If I may?
I think, yeah.
Well, as we said, systems which are
No,
talking
no.
about rendering system can contain their own components. Give me a second, please. So there is also, for example, we have a graphics component which you talks to graphics resource manager to define, for example, which sprite it is, what else. It also has the so-called Z level, usually found in web development. And using the Z levels and stuff, we can define the order of which objects are rendered on the screen. But we mostly use the capabilities of SFML library to like do all the dirty work for us.
Mm-hmm.
These guys are good at explaining things but not presenting things. The question was about how do we render, not just, not how we render internally. Right now the rendering system is pretty basic. There is no support for shading. We just, as Sergey said, are using a library to do all our drawing. There is an option of adding shading. I think GLSL, GLSL.
So OpenGL, the target rendering
Yes,
platform.
but if I remember correctly, there are two shading languages.
Yes,
I don't think SFML supports the new one.
No, it supports.
I don't know.
SFML can
Yeah.
provide you with OpenGL stuff. So, but we really never dived into it.
Yeah, it was
okay.
just, we need something to draw.
Yeah.
And the algorithm for drawing is just a simple painted algorithm with Z levels.
Mhm,
once again, so
Mhm.
it's
Yeah.
not that the whole engine thing is just, you don't know how to make an engine. You want to make something that is an engine. It's
Yeah.
not very advanced. It's simple, yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, I have a question. Are there any plans on continuing development?
Kinda. After MGM we felt we could go out. And also all the difficult stuff with combining, developing and learning. We do plan on maybe continuing development of this engine further, but not in the near future.
And well, some of our colleagues, like other people who may be here or maybe not here, they like decided that we follow the morale of if you want to make a game, you should
Yeah.
make a game, and there's always other projects you want to make, and so the future of the engine is pretty, I believe, undefined for now.
As I know, there exist novel known engines that contains ECS system right now. So Unity does not support it. Unreal does not support it. There are like add-ons for the engines to support it.
That's another thing.
Wargaming has their own engine, but they don't document it.
Yeah.
Like the whole World of Tanks Blitz game is made using their engine. But yeah, have you tried looking at it? Or it's called DAO. It doesn't have any documentation at all. It's on GitHub under my MIT license, but I'm not a C++ guy, and maybe you will.
In-house engine.
Yeah, in-house that they have put on GitHub just because they have wrote an article on Hover, I think. So.
And actually, Unity is entity component based.
It is entity component based, but without system.
Yes. So as I said, naming is difficult.
It's called like component oriented. It's completely different thing. Yeah.
Well, actually, it's not that different. It's still the same basic principles. From what we could gather from our research, there are different approaches to writing identity component systems. Unity is just one of them, which is considered to be not pure by some people.
Mm-hmm.
The pure component is that it's just data. You have arrays of data in systems, and they just use that data to do things. That's it. Unity provides also code in their components. And you could do the same thing with our engine. It will be just a bit more code, that's it. So essentially it means the same thing, yeah.
My idea was that maybe you'd like to after having this experience of developing your engine with ECS and now having great understanding of anti-component system, maybe you'd like to create some add-on for like well-known engine like Unreal or Unity to implement like ECS and
Well, I'm not sure.
just like that.
Speaking from personal experience, I don't see a point really. Yeah.
Why not? It's like
The first of all, ECS, especially in our case, goes against most principles of OOP. The systems are not, the systems might be encapsulated, but they are very tightly connected. They can share components and things like that. That's a feature. ECS is intended to be a high performance. There are also a lot of not very intuitive things. For example, rendering system stores all of its rendering data in just a big array, and that's more efficient in practice, not in theory. Because while going through the array might cost you O of n, it's O of n very fast operations with caching, with not looking up into the memory, and all other algorithms might be even slower than just going through array. And implementing it as an add-on might not make sense because, for example, Unity already has everything under the hood, Unreal, things like that. So you can't control how they are stored, their performance. You can just make something to be more convenient.
Yeah, I completely agree with that because if you need to make a new rendering process, you have to start from the ground up, just like.
And the ECS is not that convenient. As I said, it's a little bit confusing sometimes. It just has to click in your head. We all have different stories about that. I read countless articles on that, didn't understand it at all. We started writing, we didn't get it at all, and then I just found a piece of open source code with ECS and I instantly understood everything. Yeah, it just so happened.
Yeah, can you maybe share some experience, like which articles have you read?
links,
that example, like which have clicked in your head.
One of the most useful sites I've ever seen is BitSquid. Yeah, BitSquid. There are a lot of articles on low-level C++ programming with things like allocating memory efficiently, working with anti-components. We actually used a bit from their ideology on components. There are a lot of different versions of working with components in ECS.
If I may add, so on our Kanban board we had like a small big note containing a bunch of useful links,
Yeah.
and if anyone is interested we can just share this list
Sure.
of links. Just
Very useful.
But then again, they are there's a lot of links, and not all of them were really used to like define our engine.
You can arrange them in.
Yeah, they are already sorted, arranged,
Yeah.
just they're not still.
That will be very helpful.
Also,
you can mark helpful, yeah.
also we didn't use it quite. We didn't quite use it, but there is a site called GameDev.net, which has a specific section for beginners, and it's usually rather helpful. We didn't need it really because our problems were either due to our own architecture or things like that, but it might be useful.
I see.
Once again, there are a couple of useful articles.
And also, you were talking about performance and the huge benefit of ECS is great faster render cycle. Can you maybe provide some benchmarks? Do you have them? Or,
Well, we planned to add benchmarks, but so far we only made one, and it's on a bit of an outdated version. We managed to add 750.
Yeah.
On our undated, unoptimized rendering engine, we had 750 animated sprites, taking up about a quarter of the screen, all moving in random directions, and we didn't drop below 60 FPS. That was the best point.
On which system, like hardware?
Rendering. We tested rendering.
No, I mean the
On which
hardware
hardware?
specs, like.
We used I think, rather old model.
Yeah, we used 5 years old Asus.
With
Mid-level Asus.
With Intel graphics,
Yeah,
so
with-
go figure.
Yeah.
And 750 animations is just smooth.
Yes, that's a
We
lot.
could go above it, but it dropped performance a bit. So 750 is just best case, I think. There is another thing which we are yet to use is that, as you said, it allows for interesting arrangements. For example, one of the examples shown with ECS is that if your gameplay logic and your user interface logic are written on ECS, then you can mix them up. And for example, you can have buttons running around the screen. You just play Pong and then suddenly decide, well, now I want my ball to be a pedal, and the pedals to behave like a ball. That's another really powerful feature.
Yeah, the systems are really flexible. So.
Yeah. Which is yet to be used by us. Anything else?
Yeah, I have some general question about maybe kind of management. What is tools you use during the process of developing? Maybe not only about the technical resources like a Git or something else. I mean, some management tools. What actually do you use, and did you use it at all?
We did not. We weren't huge
Yeah.
organization yet.
So we used a website called Kanban Flow, which to use simple Kanban board. But I might say you can use any Kanban board provided by GitHub using on the Trello. It wasn't really any difference.
Kanban is a organizational process.
Yes, but
Yeah.
there was Kanban boards are
Which-
quite useful even if you don't use such process. Like, but we don't recommend not using it. Use organizational process, please use it.
It will really make your game much better. You won't have bugs, you won't have problem with communication, anything like that. So yeah.
And also we try to write some documentation on the Git, on the GitLab. So GitLab and GitHub provides pretty good wiki engine, simple and yet powerful. So we write about our systems, about types of files we use to encode like components and etc.
So I mean, at the lab we used Kanban Flow, GitLab, and GitLab Wiki.
And what is your goals now, and what's kind of your primary goal? What do you want to? How do you want to change the world with your engine, maybe with your game, something like that? Maybe do you have some special targets that you want to complete?
Yeah, plus the midterms.
I mean, in case of engine and in case of the game. So when you started, you have some ideas, right?
Remember that I said we decided to make a game.
Mm-hmm.
We still are deciding to make this game. We have done nothing on it. Or did we have some game design documents? I don't remember. I'm not sure that.
We used to have one, but it's
Yeah, we used to have some game design documents, but we shifted our focus to engine. We still have some ambition to make this game.
but maybe later.
Yeah, it's more of a retro game, I think. Yeah.
Don't you think about monetization of engine, for example? If you complete it well, why not to maybe sold it
Not
some
right.
platforms or something like that?
Not right now.
Because there's not so much the ECS engine, so why not?
Well, yeah, but right now it's not finished.
Not, of course not right now. I mean, just in general.
Well, yeah, maybe. Can see where it would be useful actually. But we had some plans to turn it from an in-house engine to a complete engine, or from an in-place engine into a complete engine. But
Just
yeah,
ambitions.
ambition, yeah, it's not even thought. Just would be nice to me. Anything else?
But I still think that experience we gained is pretty useful because it's really about the person, what will he do next. But for example, I'm really interested in low-level stuff, and I think that this experience will help me in the future maybe to participate in development of other engines. I mean, I'm currently interested in Godot engine, Godot, whatever you call it, and it has pretty much open base. You can Godot is mostly written using the Godot features. So I hope that maybe someday I will propose, or like not propose, but make a pull request with some cool model or stuff. But again, it's just like ideas because right now each one of us has their own personal projects. We need to keep up with the study, and so the future is pretty blurry.
Let's not end it on a minor note. I really think that you guys have made a a really cool thing because this is the time people should try to do and make their own engines because in future you won't have any time and you have like scored this tick on your resume and it will surely help you in the future.
Well, unless our future is making games.
No, I mean it's general stuff. Like most of the developers don't even know how to like arrange a game in a built-in engine like Unity or Unreal, and you can boast of knowing about the low-level stuff.
As we found out, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Thinking about an engine might get you nowhere.
No, it will get you a much longer way in the future. So
We'll
yeah,
see.
yeah, I can surely say that from my perspective.
I might say that before saying like such nice things, you should probably go out and check our engine.
No, you have a working game, like it does something, it renders like 7,000 sprites, so I guess it's not that bad.
100, not 1,000.
700. 700.
750.
Okay. Oh, 700. Okay, not bad.
It was, as I said, on an outdated version.
I mean, we haven't even like considered the multi-threading yet, or
ECS are perfect for that because it's just, as I said,
Yes.
data. Problem with data.
I remember playing on writing the Humber article.
Problem.
probably not.
Not. We're not just on that level.
Yeah, you haven't read those articles in a while. And there are people who tell about 2D version of OpenGL, like, and they try to force that, like OpenGL has a 2D mode in it, and people like upload those articles. So
You have not seen that.
Just in case if you want to, if you don't know, we have an opportunity to post some article on Hubber with the Innopolis University account actually. There is such opportunity, so you can use it if you want.
And also, I'd like to hear like, for example, Sergey, I know that now you're working in default game engine. Yes.
Sorry?
You're working in default game engine or
Godot.
Godot, yes. Can you compare it?
Well,
like,
I'm not really working. I tried it. I started making it, but with the study and kind of it's on hold for me. But yes, so I had some experience with Godot engine. It tries to be quite unique with its architecture and its ideas. It differs from both Unity and our engine and everything I have ever seen. And I really think that Godot engine can be so shameless promotion because nobody can pay me for it, but anyway. It's a cool engine. It, unlike Unreal and Unity, it just works on the Linux system, which is important for me as an enthusiast. And you just download binary and it works. And it allows to quickly sketching the games. So without sketching the games, assigning features to your stuff, writing simple scripts because it uses Python, kind of Python-like language, and I can't really compare entity component system or entity component system with an Godot architecture because they're really different. Godot utilizes some kind of container-based system with its nodes and stuff, and it's also you should really just go out and check out the Godot's philosophy to understand why it's so different. Because I can't just go on compare these two languages, engines. Sorry.
maybe you can compare the workflow. Like, is it how long does it take to create a MVP with
So if we take, how many people here participated in Global Game Jam?
all of them, I guess.
Oh, okay. So you probably have seen our game broadcast. It's about the raider and the ships and that stuff. So this game really quite simple, and I must say, if we try to make this game in any engine other than ours, it would take us maximum a day, rather than 2.5 days.
And we could add a lot of.
We could add much more features, maybe UI, animations, so maybe proper scaling of the window.
Yeah. It's that basic.
So yes, again repeating the moral of our story, guys.
Don't make engines. Only make an engine if you want to make an engine, not a game.
Yes, you really starting to appreciate people who are making engines because you understand how hard it is to make this stuff like relatives, positioning, scaling of the windows, like the viewports, the performance stuff, simple control system. Because if you like take a look at the control system in our engine, I wrote it. Yeah, please don't. But I wrote it, and I'm really ashamed of myself because I tried to add support for everything, for mouse, for gamepads, for keyboard and stuff, and it turned out to be really bad. And if you want to add control scheme for a game, you have to actually open the control system and change it. So, right now. And you're really starting to appreciate people who made like Dough, especially considering it's open source project, which is it's made by people for a free will, and it just works. It's not just works, it works, and it works like you start making a game, you made a game. You don't have a problem considering like how I'm going to attach the collision and animations and the buttons, because well, you add the button, you click on it, it's clicked. And it's really a whole different story between making an engine and making the game in a complete engine. So it's really hard to compare experiences.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I think maybe a big thrill that is that we have a nice experience really for a CV, because like mostly AAA studios right now always update their engines because they have to stay up to date, and so they write like huge parts of the engine, sometimes even starting from scratch. So basically, if you go into the industry, that would be a very important skill, I guess.
No, actually, a lot of AAA studios who use built-in engines, like ready-to-use engines like Unreal or Unity, actually go and change some source there. So it's necessary to understand how it works. Like Unity is not open source by default, but you can actually buy a license, a source license for it. And there are a lot of people in our country too who use studios who use that possibility to change some internal stuff of Unity, so it works better for the concrete game. So yeah, cool.
You guys want a cool story about the name of our engine? Yes. So engine is inherited the name. Well, you can think about it of the game we tried to make, and engine is called EFTNC. The game was named because we brainstormed the idea of our game, and we stopped on Escape from Techno-Necromancer's Castle. The game was about, tried to be the twin-stick shooter, mostly inspired by old arcade shoot 'em ups. But since we are not really making the game, you can say that engine is called, for example, engine for the nasty code or anything like that.
Just called it EFTNC with no meaning attached because
naming is hard.
It's nice. So please post all the links.
Yes.
And please all the slides and all the videos.
Should we really send over any link?
It would really be interesting to
we will
add it into your code.
And I throw links under the description of the video, so I think it will be helpful.
Yeah.
So can you guys share some website websites and books to read to learn more about it?
Yeah, we'll probably
We'll
just,
post all the links.
yeah, I'll probably just send all the links that we used, that we had, that we used.
Oh,
We will send all information to Igor, I think, and he
Yeah.
can post it in IGD.
I can directly post it there. So.
There are other ways. It will be a probably paste being link. A lot of links.
Yeah, I think. That's my idea.
If there are no questions, maybe Elizabeth, we are going to also tell about the internships.
Yes.
But before that, I just want to make a proposal for you, maybe some idea for you. You maybe suppose you have an opportunity to make some proposal about an administrative internship from our club. Maybe there will be some opportunity of that, and if you are interested in case of your engine or in case of your game, you can like formalize the idea of internship, and maybe just give some part of work for first year students for administrative internship, because it's not possible for the second year, but if it will be interesting for you, we can use this approach. Yeah, but
Yes, so
yeah,
the main
now
teamwork, now the other hand.
okay, let's applaud the guys again. Thank you.
Yeah. Very hard work.